Hey, everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining me for another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Today is Monday, January 12th. Believe it or not, it's the day before my birthday. Tomorrow's my birthday, but that's a whole other topic. So today you're here because I'm going to be doing a live Q&A for anybody who's looking to start or grow a successful freight broker or freight agency business. Again, thank you for joining me. If you're catching this on replay, hit me up in the comments with hashtag replay. Love to hear from my replay folks. I know sometimes it's just not possible to catch this in the middle of the day, but I thank everybody who is joining me live. And if you are, hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. And here's the agenda. Really simple. We're going to keep this short today. We're going to kind of try to compress time here. So we're going to do some quick shout outs to anybody who hits me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. And then we're going to jump into live Q&A. Hold your questions, though, okay? Hold your questions until I say go. Otherwise, they're going to get lost in the feed, and I won't be able to answer them. So hit me up in this comments with the city and state you're logging in from. And then, again, we're going to jump right into Q&A. I'm going to try to limit this today to 30 minutes. I've got a ton of things on my to-do list. I'm sure you do, too. I want to help you. But now the onus is on you. Have your questions ready, okay? Have your questions ready. I don't care if it's about how to become a freight agent or how to become a freight broker or how to get shippers or using LinkedIn or cold calling or marketing or AI or anything or finding carriers or anything, okay? I'll do my absolute best to try to answer any questions you have in and around those topics. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to point you in the right direction, okay? So let's do some quick shout outs and then we'll jump right in, okay? So we got AL, we're just gonna call it Al, okay? Al from New York. We got L. Corus Brown from Somerville, South Carolina. We got Noah Edmonds from Rayford, North Carolina. We got Corey Buchan from Billings, Montana, as always. Anthony Bohm from Temple, Texas. We have Case Transportation from Pasadena, California. So we got people from all over the country. We got New York and South Carolina, North Carolina, Montana, Texas, California, right? Hold your questions. I just said that before. Lado 1677, hold your questions. Otherwise, they won't get answered, okay? I'm streaming this on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, and my feed is very different than yours. So it's going to get lost if you don't hold your questions until I say go. All right. We've got Freya Hustler from Richmond, Virginia. We got Elliot Needs 108 from Elliot from Alabama. So we got people from, again, all over the US. Many times we have people from Canada and South America and Central America and Australia and Eastern Europe and all over the Philippines and Colombia. It's crazy. I mean, we've been very, very fortunate since launching Freight Broker Bootcamp, that startup program back in 2009. We've trained over 10,000 students, and those students range in 16 different countries, which is wild. Okay, which is really wild. But in any event, we've had students all over the world. Many of them have went on to build 6, 7, and even 8-figure freight brokerages. Some of my top students are doing $1 million to $2 million per month in sales as brokers and agents, okay? So that's kind of a quick intro. What else we got? We got Lado from Key West. We got Shaka Robinson from Hope Mills, North Carolina. So we got people from all over the place. All right, awesome. That's good enough for the intros today. If you are ready, we're going to jump into the live Q&A. So now I'm going to toss the ball to you. Catch it. Hit me up in the comments with any questions that you have, but be specific, okay? Be specific on what your questions are. Like, how does AI help brokers? Be more specific. How does AI help brokers in sales? Or how does AI help brokers find carriers? Or how does AI help with rating? Or hey, how does be more specific than generic? Generic is difficult, right? You can't ask me, how do we get shippers? Okay. If you ask me how we get shippers, well, I'm going to answer sales. Okay. That's how you get shippers, right? You got to learn the basics and fundamentals of how to sell as a freight broker. So let's see what we got for questions. Joseph has a question. Help with LinkedIn. I have over 1,500 connections. Can't seem to get anyone to answer my messages. New Jersey is my base. I specialize in auto transportation. Good question, Joseph. Thank you so much. All right, great. So I'm not sure exactly who your customers are for auto transportation. I don't know if you're dealing with snowbirds that are moving their car from north to south and south to north, or you're working with the military, or you're working with auctions, or maybe car dealerships, or maybe even car manufacturers, right? I'm not sure who your audience is, but here's the reality. The reality is LinkedIn is not, I like to say this all the time, LinkedIn is not Tinder, okay? We're not speed dating, right? You know, the biggest mistake that people make with LinkedIn is they make a connection, and then the next thing you know, they send them a message beating them over the head with their pitch, like, hey, thanks for connecting. I'm a freight broker. Would love to help you with your freight. Think we could save you some money. Let's set up a call. Huge mistake. Huge, huge, huge mistake. You have to slow things down. You've got to build some trust. You got to build a little bit of a relationship. You've got to position yourself as a resource, as an expert in your niche. Otherwise, people are just not going to be interested in having a conversation with you. They may be willing to connect with you, but they're going to keep you at arm's length because they know you're a salesperson and they know you're just going to beat them over the head with your pitch. So you have to slow things down, okay? So when you get a connection, one of the worst things you can do is hit them with your sales pitch, okay? Your job there is to start a dialogue, not sell them, all right? So another strategy that works really, really well, number one, first, before anything, you have to optimize your profile. Optimize your profile so that you position yourself as a valuable resource, as an expert in your niche, not just another freight jockey, okay, who's making 100 or 200 calls a day. So you have to optimize your profile in order to make a good first impression, right? Second, another strategy you can use that works really well to help build trust is to start posting content on LinkedIn, once a day, once every few days, at least two to 5 times a week, right? It's mainly a weekday platform. There are some people that post on weekends, but if you're posting 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, once a day, once every other day, and you're posting relevant content to your target market. So you're in the auto niche. So you should be posting stuff that's relevant to your target market, whether that be news, whether that be data, whether that be how-tos, whether that be just customer success stories, whether that be challenges and issues that they have and how to fix those or how you address those. You need to start posting content that's relevant to your target market. You don't care what anybody else thinks about your content. You don't care if your content goes viral. What you care about is that your target market relates to that content, it's contextual to them, and you're able to use that content as a way to build that bridge, build that trust. Okay. So those are a few things that I could suggest to you. Number one, optimize your profile. Number two, don't beat them over the head with your pitch. And number three, start publishing content that builds trust, because you have to slow down the process. It's called social selling, not cold calling. Okay. So I hope that helps. If you got a follow up, let me know. Good question, Joseph. Thank you. Thank you for leading it off. Lado asks, which AI tools is best for reaching out? I don't think any of the AI tools are best for reaching out. Do not practice, preach, or teach automated outreach through AI tools. Here's why. Let me explain why. One size fits all mass emails or mass messaging or mass phone calls or any of that, to me, is nothing more than taking a handful of mud and throwing it against the wall and hoping some of it lands, okay? You're much better off taking a more strategic approach, okay, that's dedicated to a specific niche where you totally understand the issues and challenges and problems associated with that niche, the nuance of that niche, and then you use that to develop a relationship. It's not a shotgun approach. So I'm not a believer in doing using AI as an outreach tool. I just am not. I'm sure there are people out there that will preach that and teach that, and maybe some people that have used it to get a few shippers here and there. But this is a relationship business. Okay. We're not out there spamming everybody's email box. We're not out there spamming everybody's LinkedIn box. That's just not my style. If you were looking for that, you got to go find someone else to help you. Anthony, how do you try to ease a customer about their shipment being delivered with the increase in OOS for English proficiency in the current political environment? Okay. How do you try to ease a customer's, let me read this again. How do you try to ease a customer about their shipment being delivered with the increase in OOS? Okay. For proficiency in current political environment. Okay. Well, here's the thing. You ease that by explaining to them how you properly vet your carriers and your drivers in an effort to filter all those people out. It's really simple, right? Show some transparency. Teach them what you do. Yeah, listen, if you just go to a load board and you don't vet the carrier, and when you dispatch the driver, you don't vet the driver, well, then, you're just hoping that everything goes well. And fortunately, many times, the majority of times, it'll be fine. But that one time when that carrier is, doesn't have the proper insurance, or maybe their authority is expired, or maybe they're double brokering the load, or maybe that driver doesn't speak English proficiently, right? And could run into issues, right? Could get pulled over and get taken out of service, right? So what you need to do is you need to build trust with them by sharing how you prevent that. It's really simple. Here's why I'm comfortable telling you, Anthony, that your shipment is safe if you give it with me. First, we do this. Second, we do this. Third, we do this. Fourth, we do this. And what we have found is that we're able to avoid those issues because of that process. I mean, I'm just giving you an example, but I hope that helps. Okay, Joseph asks, what AI software can I use to build my brand and website to reach more customers? Okay, well, if you're looking to build a website, there are tons of AI tools out there for website building. To be honest with you, most of the big website tools like Wix, W-I-X, they have an AI component now. There's some other tools out there that have AI where you can just type in what you're looking for, and it'll kind of generate you a template of what the website would look like, and then you customize it from there. There are a lot of them out there that you can do that with, and some of them are really good. I mean, I don't have anything against those. I think it's a great starting point. So that gets you a website, right? So let's say you go through that process and you get a host and you have that website set up, okay? Step one, you got a website set up. From there, the problem with just having a website set up is it's that old adage, right? If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it ever exist? Just because you have a website doesn't mean people are going to find you, because for you to try to rank in Google search or AI search is very difficult, and it takes time, especially for a brand new domain. So the best way to build your brand, especially as a startup, and one of the best ways is to build a following on LinkedIn and start building content around LinkedIn. Because number one, it's free. Number two, your target audience is right there. And number three, it's not that hard, right? So build an audience on LinkedIn, start generating content there, right? And then if you start generating content like a blog or different information on your website, you can always take some of that audience and direct them to your website, right? So there's a little bit of continuity between the content and your website. Another great way, one of my favorite ways to capture your audience and to develop a relationship and a brand with them is to set up an email list, right? Like a newsletter or weekly tips or weekly information that you're sending out via email to your target audience. Maybe it's a newsletter. Like, for example, Lado is in the auto industry, I think, or one of the people that was here was talking about the auto industry. Maybe you create a newsletter with news and information that's very relevant to that target market, right? And then what happens is they opt into that for your information. And then every week you're able to drip an email on them where you become the provider of that information, and they start seeing your brand as a resource, as a leader, as a tool, as an expert in that niche. And that's part of how you build your brand. So there's tons of other ways. You can start a podcast, right? You can, you can do the email list. You can do paid ads, right? You can do online paid ads, whether that be with Facebook or Google. Some of these are more expensive than others, but I think the email newsletter is a great one, capturing people's email addresses and then using it. Like, for example, my email database, I clean it regularly of people. I only want people that are active. I've got over 21,000 people that at the click of a button, I can touch with a message. You're probably part of my email list, and you get regular weekly updates from me about these lives and about other content I'm publishing, about things that I'm doing, and information related to becoming a freight broker, freight agent. I'm a perfect example of eating the dog food that I'm making, right? I'm not just preaching, I'm actually telling you what I do. So those are some examples. I hope that helps. We got build your website, use LinkedIn, build an email newsletter. Maybe if you're really ambitious, maybe you can start a podcast, things of that nature. There's a variety of ways that you can start generating traffic, building a brand, and positioning yourself as an expert. Hope that helps. Let me know, Joseph, which of those is your favorite. Hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear which one is your favorite. Anybody else, which one of those is your favorite? Hit me up in the comments. Alexander asks, I have a question regarding direct customers and paying. How long after a load has been done before they pay? Is it 30, 60, or 90 days? Okay, Alexander, so here's how it works. You are a freight broker. Shipper gives you a load. You then move that load with a carrier. That carrier delivers the load, and then that carrier sends you their invoice and the bill of lading, proof of delivery, okay, with a signature and some sort of proof that you can provide the shipper that it was delivered. You get that from the carrier, and then you create an invoice and you send that proof of delivery to your shipper. Now, from the time it's delivered to the time you get the information from the carrier, that might be days, it might be weeks, right? Squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you want to get paid quicker, obviously, then you can reach out and start getting that documentation from the carrier. But then you take that, you send that copy of the proof of delivery to the shipper, and you also send your invoice. Now, from there, from the time that they receive it, their terms are typically 30 days. So let's assume that, just statistically speaking, shippers on average are probably going to pay you in somewhere between 35 and 45 days. Some shippers are going to be 60. Some shippers are going to be 70. Some shippers, God forbid, are going to be 90. I don't suggest you work with those shippers, okay? Cash flow is king, especially if you're a broker. So in most cases, it's probably going to pay you somewhere between 35 and 45 days. Now, you're going to have to pay the carrier in under 30 days, right? And if they want a quick pay, you'll have to pay them before that. So that's why most startup brokers use factoring of some sort, right? Which is basically like creative financing to allow you to pay the carrier before you get paid by the shipper. So I hope that answers your question. Let me know if you got a follow-up. Christopher asks, where can I go to get some hands-on experience freight brokering? Well, you could go work for a local freight broker in your area, right? Become a W-2 employee, and you can start learning some of the components of freight brokering there. Maybe they'll hire you as a carrier sales rep. Maybe they'll hire you into dispatching. Maybe they'll hire you into sales. Depends upon the brokerage, right? But you can learn that through a W-2 environment. The challenge with that, there's pros and cons. The pros are you're getting paid to learn. The cons are it can take you an extended period of time to learn those skills. because you're typically going to start you out at the bottom. You're going to learn a skill. You're going to have a job. Maybe you're doing that job for a year or two, and then they'll migrate you to a promotion and you get a little higher job where you'll learn additional skills. So it could take you years to learn those skills, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The alternative to that is to tap into someone that's already done what you're looking to do and take an online course or a coaching program, and that will help support you through the first year of your business, right? So that's where you would learn some of the information and the skills and the strategies and the systems remotely from your home, right? Where you would learn it independently, and then you would deploy it, and you would have some support from somebody who's already done what you're looking to do. If you're looking to build a 7-figure freight brokerage, then that's what I do. If you're looking to, if you're, there's plenty of people out there to choose from, right? I'm the guy who's probably been doing it the longest, right? And probably have the most customers, but ultimately that's kind of where you're at. Okay. Hope that helps. If you got a follow up, let me know. Melodrama boy. This dude has the same voice as Gary Vee. I take that with a compliment. Thank you. I don't know. I don't think I sound like Gary Vee, but I do present in a way that allows you to understand and break it down to a fundamental level that even if you don't have a lot of experience, you can understand. So hope that helps. Okay, question from, speaking of optimizing your LinkedIn page, what would be a good tip here if a person had more than one business? Great question. I get this question all the time, especially from my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator clients. So if you are looking to use LinkedIn to help build your brand, develop relationships, and ultimately get more clients, right? The challenge is if you have an existing business or another job, which sometimes happens, people will sometimes start out part-time, maybe as an agent or something. If you have a job or another business, having a LinkedIn profile with multiple businesses or multiple jobs can be confusing, and it can set off a red flag. Okay? So it's very hard to serve multiple masters when it comes to your LinkedIn profile. So my suggestion is pick the business that you really have the real opportunity to have the biggest impact. So if you're doing photography and you're also a freight broker, which one do you think has a bigger upside using LinkedIn? And then dedicate your profile to that. That's one way to do it. The alternative is try to set up a separate profile with a different email address and a different picture. You can LinkedIn doesn't necessarily like you to have more than one profile, but you can, as long as you use a different email address, different profile picture. And then you could direct different audiences to different profiles. That can get confusing, but it is an option. My primary suggestion is pick one business, right? Optimize your entire profile around that, and try not to serve two masters with LinkedIn, because number one, it's not realistic, and it's definitely not easy. So I hope that helps. Dennis, another auto transportation question, which is also my niche, but does the same general rule apply for 5 or 6 commercial accounts as a sweet spot for 6 figures? I would think it would. Yeah. So what DWatch 2023 is referring to is this. One of the best part about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent is you do not need hundreds of customers in order to be successful. You really only need a small handful of small to medium-sized shippers. You don't need, Nestle and Nucor Steel and, Monster Energy, and you don't need these multi-billion-dollar brands in order to make a 6-figure income. The reality is you need a small handful of clients. And in my experience, that can be in almost any niche. That can be steel, that can be bottled beverages, that can be plastics, that can be paper, that can be any of the different industries and types of niches that you can jump into. So I don't think the auto transport industry is going to be any different. The key is, can they give you 1, 2, 3 shipments a week? Now, if you're dealing with consumers in the auto industry, not, then that's going to be challenging, right? You're going to get your lifetime value of a consumer transport in the auto industry is going to be very, very low. The lifetime value of a commercial account, like an auction or a car dealership, is going to be much, much higher. Okay. So yeah, I do believe that if you have a small handful of small to medium-sized shippers in that niche, you can definitely make 6 figures. But there's a lot of variables in there, right? What are your margins, right? How many shipments are they giving you? How good are you at your job, right? So there's a lot of variables, but it's very, very possible. Yes. Freight Hustler. What margin targets should a new broker realistically aim for today? And when is walking away from freight the smarter move? Okay, so typically, just to educate everybody about freight brokerage, freight brokers, if you're dealing with full truckload, I'm not talking about LTL, I'm not talking about intermodal or any of that, right? I'm just talking about full truckload, which is where most freight brokers are, right? Most full truckload profit margins for freight brokerage fall somewhere in the 10 to 20% range. Now, remember, would you rather have 10% of $5,000 load, or would you rather have 20% of $1,000 load, right? 10% of a $5,000 load is $500. 20% of $1,000 load is $200. Which would you rather have? Well, you'd rather have the $500 because the percentage doesn't ultimately matter. But what you're going to find is the higher the dollar value of the load, the lower the percentage. The lower the dollar value of the load, the higher the percentage. So I'm just giving you a little bit of a framework, okay? So you understand. I believe that as a freight broker, you should be able to make a minimum of $100 per load, no matter how long or how high the value of the load is. And you should focus on, as a new broker, you should probably be focusing on that 10 to 15% margin range to get your feet wet and to get started and start generating some clients and some cash flow. So start on the lower end of the margin, right? If you're able to get a client that's going to give you 2 or 3 loads a week and you're only able to make $100 a load and it's 10%, guess what? At least your cash flow is moving, because over time, other opportunities with that shipper will open up, or as times change, you may be able to increase your margin or decrease your cost. Okay. So I think you'd want to start on the lower end as a new broker. Going out there and trying to sell 20% at the very beginning when you have no relationships, you have no experience, is obviously going to be challenging or more challenging. So I think on the lower end of that makes a lot more sense. So I hope that helps. If you've got a follow-up, let me know. Watching YouTube 23, what's the best way to reach out and expand a carrier network, especially being a new broker? I know trust is a big thing in this industry. How can we stand out? Okay, so the best way to reach out and expand your network, because you're asking for 2 different questions here, right? You're asking, how do I reach out and expand my network? And then you're also asking, how can I build trust? Okay, so we're going to address those separately. So reaching out and building your network, really what it comes down to, the best way to build a network is to have it targeted, specific to your niche. So rather than you just getting a list of carriers and calling 50 carriers a day and say, hi, my name's this, we're a broker, blah, 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 right? And spending a lot of time talking to carriers that you will probably never use because their lanes, their trucks are never going to line up with your shipper needs. I'm a big believer in starting with the shippers, finding out their lanes, identifying their lanes, and then building your carrier database and your carrier network around those specific shipper needs. So if you have a shipper that's shipping olive oil out of New England, right? Let's call it olive oil out of Massachusetts, and it's going down to New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and New York and Virginia, okay? Then you're going to build carriers, typically probably van carriers, and maybe in the winter reefer, depending on temperature control, but van carriers that move between in those lanes in that region. There's no sense in talking to a carrier in Texas or Florida or California or Washington or Montana or Illinois that doesn't run those lanes. So you want to identify carriers that are specific to your niche. That's why I always start with the loads and then use the load boards, use lane history, use different tools that are specific to your niche. that will allow you to identify carriers that will be able to support your customer needs, because that's really what you're looking for, right? Now, if you, for example, if you use a tool, one of the load boards, it has like a lane history that will allow you to search trucks that have been posted in those lanes over the last 30 days. If I did a truck search from Boston to Philadelphia, right, over the last 60 days, it would give me a list of all these carriers that have posted their truck in that lane 1 times, 10 times, 30 times, 50 times. And the more they've posted that truck, the more likely they are to have equipment available there. And that's how you would reach out, typically by phone or by email, to start a dialogue with them. Okay, so that's starting a dialogue. That's building your carrier network specific to your freight niche, specific to your customer needs. Okay, how to build trust. Building trust is really simple. Do what you say you are going to do. That's the foundation. Under promise, over deliver. Consistently. You say you're going to call them back tomorrow, call them back tomorrow. Don't call them back 2 days from now. You say you're going to pay them in a week, pay them in a week. Don't make it 10 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Right? If you say the pickup time is at 11 a.m., then it should be at 11 a.m., not 12 or 1 or 2. Right? So do what you say you're going to do. Under promise, over deliver. That's the foundation tenet of building trust in a relationship. Some of the other things you can do is you can use testimonials from other carriers. You can use testimonials from other shippers. Testimonials meaning video or written testimonials that say, hey, we love working with Dennis. We love working with John. Love working with Mike. Here's why. We thank you, John, for all your help, right? Having some sort of a testimonial, social proof, is one of the fastest ways to build trust. Think about it. The last time you bought something on Amazon, I can almost guarantee you that you looked at the reviews. Okay? And was it 5-star? Was it 4-star? Was it 3-star? Was it 1-star? What did they say? Did they say it was garbage? Did they say it was good? Did they say it was okay? Did they love it? Did they hate it? Right? And you will base your buying decisions on that. That is just a psychological phenomenon. Okay? If you and I are standing side by side in front of a shipper and everything is equal, and I got 10 testimonials and you have none, who are they going to hire? They're going to hire me, because their fear of me making a mistake is less than the fear of you making a mistake. Okay? Because I have social proof that I do what I say I'm going to do. So those are some examples, right? I don't know if you got a follow-up, let me know. Amazing. Love it, Lado. Great. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. He was a part of my Freight Broker Bootcamp startup program. Okay? Or they were. I don't know if it's he or she. LaShawn, my friend, how are you, buddy? Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Okay, Avery Hill. If your freight broker experience, in your freight broker experience, how often did you have a load you're missing or somebody trying to scam you? I started my freight brokers in 2003. I sold it in 2016. During that time frame, were there carriers that tried to double broker loads? Absolutely. Were there people that tried to steal freight? Absolutely. Were there scammers out there lurking on every corner? Absolutely. But I will say it's more prevalent today. I'm just being transparent, right? The internet and things have changed, right? So it has gotten more, it has become more prevalent, especially theft and double brokering, right? So for me, it was pretty rare. I mean, when I say rare, I mean, double brokers. I mean, you're talking less than 1% of our loads. Did we have loads that were double brokered? Yes, but it was less than 1%. Okay. So it's pretty rare. I'm in the big scheme of things. Now, the fact is, we were doing hundreds and hundreds of loads a day by the end, right? So the key here and avoiding fraud or double brokering or theft is to make sure you do the proper due diligence. Proper due diligence on the shipper, proper due diligence on the carrier, proper due diligence on the driver. Make sure you do the proper due diligence. Do not skip the steps. Do not just assume that they sound like a nice guy or a nice gal and that they're not going to screw you, because that's what scammers are good at. Scammers are good at building confidence with you that you're a nice guy and then taking advantage of that, right? So if you vet your shippers, if you vet your carriers and you vet those drivers properly, and you don't just haphazardly hire these people to haul hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of product for you and your shipper, you should be fine. It'll be pretty rare, right? I have a lot of students who have never had a load double brokered or stolen. I've got other students that have had loads double brokered and stolen in the whole gambit, but they were loosey-goosey and the other ones weren't, right? So it really depends on you. I hope that helps. Freight Hustler, if you're starting a brokerage from scratch today, what would you do different compared to 5 years ago? I wouldn't really do anything different from 5 years ago, to be extremely honest with you. Let me just think, though. 5 years ago would have been 2021. We were coming, that was kind of a bull market, right? So freight was we had a bull market going on, meaning, freight, there was the volumes of freight and freight rates were up because there was more shippers than there were loads. I will be honest with you. I think now is as good of a time to get new clients as it was then. But let me explain. Okay. Here's what happens. When you have lots of freight and not enough trucks, it's very hard to move those. It can be very hard to move those loads because everybody's competing for those trucks. But when you've got somewhat of a parity of trucks to loads, it's a lot easier to move those loads. Maybe there's with some of the changes in compliance in the FMCSA, maybe capacity's going down a little bit. Maybe the freight volumes are going to increase a little bit. That's to be determined. But ultimately, I believe that the core component of developing relationships with shippers and getting clients is, right, having a proven system as opposed to just relying on a proven sales system, as opposed to having a generic script that you're just spraying and praying, right? So one of the generic scripts that new freight brokers and even existing freight brokers use is, hey, my name is Dennis. I'm a freight broker. What if we could save you some money on your freight? I'd love to quote on some of your lanes. They've heard it 1,000 times. They don't want to hear it 1,001. And they're going to give you an immediate rejection of, we're not interested. We don't do business with brokers, or we're happy with our current providers. And that's what you're going to get. And you're going to be fighting and clawing in the first 15 seconds of that cold call. And it's going to be challenging. You're probably not going to get past it. And so at that point, you got to make 200 or 300 calls a day in order to find a few people that might give you an opportunity to quote. It's a terrible strategy. The better strategy, right, is to be different. Not use those generic cold call scripts. Create what I call a compelling sales hook that differentiates you from the competition. Allows you so that when you do call them, right, you don't create a negative first impression. They're willing, because you sound different, they'll treat you a little different. They'll give you an opportunity to ask some questions. They'll give you an opportunity to build some rapport, so you can get past that first 15 to 30 seconds of a cold call, which is the most difficult part. If you can't touch first, you can't get to home base, right? And so this allows you to get to first and start rounding to second, right, at a much higher percentage. So your conversions to contacts to closing is going to be much, much better, all right? Contacts to quote and contacts to closing is going to be much, much better. So that's why, for example, this is a good time to mention it, why I put together my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator Program. My Freight Broker Sales Accelerator Program is an 8-week coaching program where I teach my favorite sales strategies, tactics, tools, the same system, and it allowed me to do over $200 million as a freight broker. It's teaching, coaching, mentoring for 8 weeks. Now, it's not open right now for enrollment. You can enroll right now, but there is a wait list. If you're curious about how that works, if you'd like to hear the success stories from other students that have went through that program, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Now, this is sales coaching and training only. This is not for people that are interested in just getting started as a new broker or a new agent. You still have to overcome those hurdles, right? That's where my Freight Broker Bootcamp startup training works, right? But this is my sales accelerator program. So if you get on the wait list, you'll be the first to get notified. Now, I am hoping that by the end of January, early February, that I'm going to open enrollment. I don't have an exact date yet, but I will open enrollment. You will get a text, you will get an email, and you will be the first to see the information. If it's something that you think is a good fit for you, we can schedule a call. You and I can do a quick interview. I can determine if you're a good fit for the program. And if you are, we can get you enrolled. It's not free. It's not cheap. Okay? But you will get an exponential return on investment if you take the strategies I teach and deploy them in your business. Okay? Again, some of my top students are doing $1 million to $2 million a month, not a year, a month. Okay? So I'm not promising that to you, but I am telling you that it's possible. So I hope that helps. All right, let me go to the next one. All right, what time is it? I'm already over 30 minutes. I lied to myself. Okay. There's a ton of questions. Oh, geez. Let's see. I'm just looking for a good question. Okay, here's an objection you're going to get as a broker when you're prospecting. Is there any way to do business with shippers when they say their business is customer routed? Here's what you do when a prospect says it's customer routed. What that means, just for you people that are new, when they say their freight is customer routed, it means they make a product like this mouse, okay? And then when they sell it to their customer is responsible for the shipping. So the customer is responsible for sending in a truck to pick up the mouse, the product on their dock. And then when it leaves the shipper's dock, they have no responsibility. They don't pay the freight. They don't manage the logistics. That's what's customer routed. Okay. So you're looking for freight that is typically not customer routed. So you want somebody who creates a mouse, and then they control the shipping to the customer, to the distribution facility, to wherever it's going. And then that's who you'll invoice, and that's who will be your customer, right? So now that you understand that, if they say it's customer routed, there's a couple things you can say. Now, this is all you're trying to do is turn lemons into lemonade, right? If they tell you that, you can either say, oh, sorry, and hang up, or you can dig in and ask a couple of questions. The first question you can ask is, I totally understand that. Let me ask you a question though. How do you handle your inbound freight? So if they're a bottled beverage provider, right? How do you get your bottles and labels and liquid and ingredients? How do you handle your inbound freight? And that's going to make them think, oh, that's a really good point. We do have a couple truckloads a week coming in where we control the freight. Great. Now you dive into that. They may not. The other one is, how do you handle, right? For example, if you have to have a return product, like say someone rejects your product or there's an issue there, that's another question you can ask. And then the last one is, what happens? Have you ever had a situation where one of your customers fails to pick up a load in a timely manner, where for whatever reason, they're struggling to get that product off your dock? They can't find a carrier. They can't find a broker. They can't find somebody to get that product off your dock. What happens then? Right. And then if they say, yeah, as a matter of fact, that just happened, or yeah, we've got a shipment here. We've been waiting for the customer to pick it up, and I don't know why they haven't. And then you would dive into that and say, hey, listen, if that situation ever happens, I wouldn't have an issue. You could refer me in and I could help get that off your dock and help your customer at the same time. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to find opportunities. Now, most of the time that you do this, you are not going to be able to convert that into a lead, but it's worth 30 seconds to 60 seconds to ask those questions, because there are times when that will stimulate their brain to a point where they're like, oh, yeah. I know what you're saying. Yeah, we do run into that from time to time, and that may create an opportunity for you. But as a general rule, when it's customer routed, right, after you ask those few questions, it's probably not worth your time and you need to move on. Okay, so I hope that helps. Dude, Broker 99, I don't know what you're talking about, but you must be dealing with a bunch of clowns. Okay. I promise you that there's the vast majority of freight that moves is not double brokered. It's in the single digits that's actually double brokered. Now, there are lots of people that might be trying to do it, single digit percentages. So, if you're dealing with pulling carriers off a load board and not vetting them properly, or you're working with some clown dispatch in Eastern Europe, or you have somebody like that, well, then you're probably going to run into double broker more often. But if you deal with reputable companies that have been in business for an established period of time and you vet them, right, you're not going to run into double brokering anywhere near what you're talking about. I promise you, I've got over 10,000 students, almost 20,000 students that went to the program. I still have clients that are in small, medium, and even large brokerages that I'm talking to on an ongoing basis. And so I have a really good pulse on the market, right? As a market as a whole. Yeah. The other question is when they say it's handled in-house with their own fleet, is their response the exact same thing? How do you handle your inbound? Right? That's the big one. How would you handle your inbound? If they're doing shipper customer direct, meaning they're shipping to their customers, if they got their own fleet and they're shipping direct to their customers, right? They want to control the last mile to the customers. How are they handling their inbound product? Right? Because they're typically not sending their trucks out to pick up product, but they may be purchasing that product in a way that they are controlling the freight on it. So that's what you would do if they have their own fleet. Again, Mr. Negative, 90 to 120 days. You are on crack. Okay, let me break the news to you. There are shippers that pay 90 to 120 days, but the vast majority are going to be in the 30 to 60 day range with an average of probably 40, 35, 45, even, stretching at 50 days. Again, I have conversations, clients, and relationships in brokerages of all size, and we have these conversations. I'm not saying there aren't outliers that do try to stretch it out, but the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I strongly suggest any of you do not do business with a shipper that's paying you in 90 to 120 days. I have fired clients that were doing 7 figures with my company because they were paying late, significantly late. The problem is everybody thinks cash is king. Cash isn't king. Cash flow is king. It's what will kill your business. It's one of the reasons why you've seen a variety of large brokerages go out of business because they didn't control their cash flow. Okay? You don't go out of business because you're not generating profit. You go out of business faster because you're not generating cash flow. Now, of course, profit you have to have, but if you're able to at least pay your bills and run break even, you can sustain that business forever if you're running at break even. But if you're getting paid at 90 days and you got to pay your carriers at 30, that machine is going to break. So my strong suggestion is when shippers get to 60 days and they do not have a consistent plan of paying you, and you've run their credit and their credit is not going downhill, right? You want to make sure if their credit's going down, you want to put them on credit hold, right? The only other alternative you can have is to try to get some sort of receivables insurance, like AR insurance, where those invoices are insured by a third party. And then in the event they go out of business, well, then you're going to have a deductible, maybe $10,000, but the insurance company is going to pay you off on the rest if they do go out of business or don't pay. So hope that helps. Lado, what's the best way to ask the shipper about the payment length and when into the conversation? Here's what I would suggest. After you move your first, let them know up front that your terms are 30 days. They're probably going to say, okay. They're not going to raise a red flag if they've got to move it. Or they may say, well, we pay in 60 days. Then you have to make a decision as to what you're going to do. If you are willing to take them paying you in 40 or 50 or 60 days, then that's your decision. If not, stick to the 30 days. If they say, okay, great. After you deliver the first load and after you invoice them, I would reach out to the receivables person, the person or the payables person, the person that's going to pay the invoice at your shipper, someone in accounting. And I would introduce myself as an onboarding component. You want to know who that person is. And then I would set the proper expectations. Listen, Joe, we're a small business. I'm not ashamed to say that. Cash flow is king. You now have the invoice. Was there anything missing? Is there anything we need to change in order to ensure we get paid in 30 days? They're going to say, well, you're missing this paperwork or you're missing this paperwork, or no, hey, everything's great. We're going to pay you in 30 days. Great. Or you know what? The payment may go out in 30 days, but you might not, maybe a little bit late. You might be getting it closer to 40. Will that work? You got to make that decision. So in that case, sure. Yeah. 30, 40 days, you can handle that. But you don't want to get into 100. Perfect example. I have a student who went through this program who did not properly vet the client, and they didn't run credit on them. They didn't set up a term where they were getting paid on time. They didn't set proper expectations, and now that customer owes them $100,000, and they've had to pay the carriers, and now they're trying to piecemeal getting paid $10,000 at a time. And it's taking an extended period of time and it's slowing their business down. Is it going to put them out of business? Probably not, but it's slowing them down because now they've got to spend all that time and capital on that one client as opposed to being able to move freight for other clients because that cash flow is king. So yeah, you got to make sure you're dealing with reputable shippers just the same way as you're dealing with reputable carriers. So I hope that helps. All right, guys, it's been close to an hour. Let's see if there's one more question, and then I'm going to wrap it up for today. Oh, let me look. Good Lord, I'm sick of seeing that guy. Mr. Negative. Yeah, TJ Hines, I did. I'm just looking for one more good question that can help everybody. Okay, here we go. Good question from Seth. I'm a new freight broker. I came from the trucking side in the oil fields. I'm confident in what I know, but when I cold call, I just don't feel or sound confident. How do I turn that around? Okay, I'm going to give you a few steps, and then we're going to wrap it up for today. Okay? If you guys have learned anything on this live, if you've enjoyed this live, or if you want me to come back next Monday and do another Freight Broker Live Q&A with you so you can ask any questions and I'll do my best to answer them, hit the like button now. All right. No matter where you're at, if you're on LinkedIn or you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, wherever you're at, hit the like button. Do me that favor. That's the price of admission. Now, to answer your question, how do you feel more confident? So number one, you should learn how to create a compelling sales hook that's different than a generic sales script, using pain points and common issues and challenges that are specific to your niche, and or gathering sales intelligence specific to that client and creating a compelling sales hook that allows you to stand out from the crowd. I can't do that in 2-minute Q&A session. But if you guys are interested in that, you guys can get on the wait list for my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator that's coming up soon. Okay. FreightBrokerBootcamp.com/waitlist. You guys have already told you that, but you can get on the wait list and get notified when spots open up. Okay. Spots will be limited. It will sell out very quick. All right. Getting back to your question. Once you figure that out, at that point, what you're going to want to do to build confidence and competence, because those two are tied together. The more competent you feel, the more confident you will be. Okay. So once you have whatever that sales script is you're going to use for outreach, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start role playing that with a partner. Okay. So your wife, your son, your daughter, your cousin, your brother, your business partner, someone you know, a friend, and role play them being a shipper and you cold calling them and developing that skill, developing that comfort level, developing that competence. Okay. So you're going to want to do some role playing. Now I'm not talking about 3 phone calls. I'm talking about, you should be trying to do this for, you should be doing this an hour a day for a week or more to build that competence, right? Where you don't sound like you're reading, like you have some confidence in the words you say because you understand what you're saying. So recording that or, doing role playing would be key. The last thing would be record those conversations as well as sessions where you actually rebut and provide rebuttals to common objections. So you want to role play and record those conversations. What you'll be able to do is you'll be able to play those back, and those will teach you, because a lot of times when you're in the moment, it's hard to understand how you sound and your inflection and your tone and your whole demeanor and your whole confidence level. But when it's recorded, that'll come out. You'll be like, oh my God, do I sound like a little mealy-mouthed salesperson that doesn't have any confidence? Or do I project confidence? Do I project what they're looking for in somebody that they're going to give their freight to? Or am I just that little meek mouse that doesn't have any confidence because I'm begging for freight? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So role playing. So number 1, figure out how to create a compelling sales hook. Number 2, and don't use all the generic sales scripts out there because they've already heard them a million times. Number 2, role play. Number 3 is a part of that. 2 and 3 is role play and record your conversations so you can play them back and you can self-critique and make those adjustments. With that, in a short period of time, you will build a high level of competence, which will lead to confidence in yourself. And once you have that confidence in yourself, you can then portray that confidence on the phone to whoever your prospect is. Does that make sense? I hope that helps. I tried to create it in a very systemized approach to try to help you guys, but I hope that does help, Seth. Listen, if you guys are interested in becoming a freight broker and you're just looking to get started, right? And you don't know where to start and you're looking for some help on becoming a freight broker, freight agent, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained over 10,000 students. Many of my students are now doing 6, 7, 8 figures. We offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee. That is my startup program, freightbrokerbootcamp.com. If you are looking for help with sales, specifically how to get shippers, you're already a freight broker, you're already a freight agent, maybe you're in the early stages of your business and you're struggling to get your first few shippers, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist, get on the wait list. You'll be notified when the spots open up for my new coaching program, or not a new coaching program, but when I have a new cohort come on. I've put over 1,000 students through that program, the Sales Accelerator program. And at the end of the program, I send out a survey to them and I ask them to rate it 1 to 10. And the ratings after over 1,000 students that went through is a 9.2 out of 10. I mean, I can't get any better than that. I would have been happy with a 7, ecstatic with an 8. It's a 9.2. That's their feedback after completing the program. Okay. So I hope that helps. If you guys want to get on the wait list, make sure you get on the wait list now so you'll get notified. Appreciate you guys being here. You had some really great questions today. Thank you so much for showing up. Hit the like button now. Make sure you set a reminder to be here next Monday at noon Eastern time for the next Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Have an awesome day. See you guys next week.